Good afternoon, everybody. This is April 1st. Don't be fooled, though. You are here. This is the program with Tyler on Demand. Happy to have y'all. We're back for another month. Having these monthly, it's like it gives me the proper amount of time to miss it, proper amount of time to like come back and with some energy and like to be very excited to do it. I do have a very special guest with me here today. Patrick Budd's going to be joining me on the program. We've got an interview slated. We've got some performance slated. So if you've never heard him before, now is the right time to tune in and make sure you stay tuned because the boy's got some good stories and some even better music. So happy to have him here today. You are now tuned into the program with Tyler on Demand. Oh yeah, it's the program with Tyler on Demand. I will explain if you didn't understand. It's the program with Tyler on Demand. That bit at the end, that got me. I don't think I ever actually like consciously recognized it.
You need a little tag off it.
I agree. This is the program with Tyler on Demand, and I'm joined by a very special guest, your friend and mine, Mr. Patrick Budd. He's a singer, songwriter, guitarist, producer, magician?
Yeah, why not?
Hey, well, that one I just threw out there, but maybe we got him. But Patrick Budd, y'all, yeah! Welcome to the studio, brother. Hello.
You know, it'd be really funny if you had just a soundtrack of one person clapping. Woo!
There, I'll clip that later.
Yes. Now, hello, everyone. It's good to be here. It is a beautiful day in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely, sir. Well, thank you for joining. We were just listening to Cigarettes, and I've told you plenty of times in person, I tell anybody that I can who talks about this song that this is just one of my favorites. I heard it at the Pocket 2.5, 3 almost, maybe. Maybe that was too long. It's a long time ago that I heard this song, and I've watched it grow. I've watched it build. This is obviously now the mastered version and like the studio track that's being put out. How long has this journey actually been creating this song for you? And do you think this is one of your core pieces?
This is definitely a core piece. In terms of how it came to be, it was more of like a actually what really happened was I was listening to a lot of Noah Kahan music at the time. And if anyone knows Noah Kahan, he is sort of like a champion of his hometown or a champion of nostalgia, really, which is really funny because people always ask me, they come up to me and or anyone who's heard the song will be like, oh, like, so do you still smoke cigarettes? Or like, hey, do you want to step outside for a cigarette right now? And I'm like, it's not actually about cigarettes. But that song came about because if we want to take it back a little further, another song I have out, not out, another song that's coming out soon on the upcoming album is a song called 23. And that was sort of like my first attempt at writing about, one, nostalgia. It's a very nostalgic song. And two, something that sort of means something to me. I had a band before this sort of Patrick Budd solo artist outfit that called the Starwood Flyers. And the first few songs I wrote were just sort of like, it was like fun word vomit. I was more so just trying to write songs to understand song structure and understand how to write songs and become familiar with it. And they're out there right now. I don't really talk about them a lot, but they are out. They're released. They're just about like most of them are actually about the moon and things like that. And there's actually another one I really like called "Walk Me Down to the River." I'd like to figure out how to incorporate that one into coming sets in the future. But during that period of time in the Starwood Flyers, I actually wrote a song called "No Direction Home" that incorporates a lot of chords and a lot of chord changes. And in the middle of that process, there was a bass player in my band at the time who, for God bless his heart, he could never remember all of the chord changes. I had too many things going on. So I decided one night I was going to write a song that was just so easy listening and so easy on the changes that no one was going to have to play, math games in their head when trying to play this song with me. So I sat down and I just chunked out these real simple chords, and I had been playing the game Toontown at the time. I like to tell that story every time I play it because I played Toontown a lot as a kid, and for some reason I decided to download it again on my computer at 23 years old. And as I'm playing this game that I used to play, 15 years, 20 years prior, I just became completely overwhelmed playing this game. It was like watching a movie that just sort of emotionally riles you up. And here I am playing this cartoon game, feeling the same way. So I wrote this whole thing about how I wish I wasn't 23, you know, I wish I was a kid again. And the whole song is about all these things that have to do with sort of being younger and being nostalgic. And that's kind of when I was like, okay, I think I'm understanding more what's inside me and what wants to come out. So therefore, some time goes by, probably a year goes by at that point, and I keep thinking about that song 23 that I wrote. And around that time too, there was some sort of inner turmoil with the Starwood Flyers going on, as most bands experience at some point or another. And I sort of decided that I should probably end this project. And at that point, I was so jaded by the whole thing. I had been playing and gigging music pretty heavily for the last 5 years, I think, at that point, and I hadn't really ever found a music community of any kind. So I was kind of getting jaded with the whole thing, and I was just thinking about just dropping it all and quitting, because I was like, I didn't understand how to do it anymore. So funny thing was, is I started sort of taking up film photography as my new creative outlet. And my girlfriend Emily got me a really nice film camera for Christmas, and I just sort of took it by the reins and was like thinking to myself, you know, maybe I don't want to play music right now, but I still really want to be involved with the music community. And I sort of had all these friends that I made in previous bands where I knew that I could hit them up and be like, hey, I see you have a show coming up. I would love to take pictures for you. So on sort of came with that. I would show up to friends' gigs. I would take pictures, like all for free, because I had no credibility. I just was like, oh, maybe I'll just be a concert photographer from now on. So after that, I was like, well, where can I get some more practice? And after going to a show at the Pocket in January of 2023, I remember that I discovered that they had an open mic. And in between going to that show and finding the open mic, that's actually when I wrote Cigarettes, sort of keeping myself amused. I wrote it with the complete emotional vigor that was required to draw that sort of, I'm saying emotional as much as you're saying fantastic. It's just one of those words that's sticking with me right now. Yeah, it is contagious, because drawing that out was still just as real as it is when I play it. But the funny thing is there's some sort of revisionist history, because I always tell that story as like, this is the song that started it all. And it was, but I wasn't really even considering myself as an active artist at the time. So I remember, okay, we have Cigarettes and 23, and both songs that I was still proud of, but was like, I'm not going to do anything with these. And I ended up showing up to the open mic at the Pocket. And I remember I brought my whole camera bag. I was just sort of like standing in the front, probably drinking too many gin and tonics, just taking pictures of everyone just because I wanted to have fun. I still brought my guitar just in case, just to, again, amuse myself. You know, maybe I don't want to be actively pursuing a career in music, but I still enjoyed playing music, of course. It's the one thing I love the most. And so I remember signing up and getting a slot, because back then it wasn't as popular as it was today. You pretty much, as long as you showed up, you were able to play. And I got selected, and I went towards the end of the night, because that was kind of all that Ginny, who was the hostess at the time, had left. And I had probably about 3 gin and tonics. I don't think I played that well. But I remember getting up there in front of my peers for one of the first times in my life and playing 23 and Cigarettes. And it was the first time I played songs that I wrote in front of people that after I was finished, people didn't want to come up to me and know what guitar I was playing or what chords they were, or like sometimes if I was playing electric when I was younger, like what gear is that? What amp is that? All that stuff. It was the first time in my life people actually came up to me and said like, wow, that was a great song. I could relate to it. It made me feel something. And it was the first time I realized I might have something to say. Yeah. So although immediately I wasn't sort of sold on pursuing music, I do remember that being a very definitive turning point. And from there, came the rest. But I basically interrupted.
No interruption. It was a question. And we got time today, man. We got time today. I hope y'all are ready for like some long answers. We got time. It's only 12:40. You know, we're still in here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I did want. Okay, wait, hold on. There was a couple points in there that I did, because we'll get to the rest for sure, and then we'll weave Pocket in there. But I first met Patrick Budd at the Pocket, right? And as you're saying now, that wasn't where Patrick Budd first started, right? And Cigarettes was kind of maybe the revival. So where did playing music, guitar, listening, like when did music become part of your life? That when was the first version of that?
So, okay, so if we go back, so this is all in 2023, and I had gone to the show that I was just taking pictures at in January. Didn't even show up to the open mic until that May. And then I remember I actually still had my band, the Starwood Flyers, but I decided that I was so over what was happening within that band that I was like, well, we'll have the Starwood Flyers and we'll do our local like cover shows and bars and dives and stuff like that. But I'm going to keep going to this open mic and playing my songs as Patrick Budd, or at the time it was Patrick J. Budd, because I wanted to have a thing.
I don't remember that.
That probably only lasted a few weeks. I think I started getting over it. But the funny part was once I decided to ditch the J part in my name, I would still show up and I would just write Patrick Budd so that they would write it on the board and they would still write Patrick J. Budd for a while. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to do the J anymore. Anyways, stop it, you guys. So what was really funny is, so I went to that open mic. I think I went to one more after that. And that was actually when I met a musician by the name of Ben Ryan. And Ben Ryan was actually the one that introduced me to you, Mr. Tyler on Demand, and company to soon be. And it was so funny because Ben came up to me. I was like so shy. I was not ready to talk to anybody unless I had my 2 or 3 gin and tonics. And Ben just came up to me and he asked me what film camera I had. And I was like, oh, it's a Canon AE1, you know, and he's like, oh, I have like a Canon, I can't remember what he has because he still has it. It's either a Canon A1 or AT1. It's basically like the sister camera to the camera I had. And so we started talking about film cameras and we started talking about music, of course, because he's a singer-songwriter himself and he'll go up and he'll play songs he wrote. And you know, he asked me what kind of guitar I had and I told him it was a PRS. And then I was like, do you have any electric guitars? You know, he goes, yeah, I have a Fender Stratocaster. And I'm like, oh, I used to have a PRS Silver Sky, which is a John Mayer signature model with PRS. And I can't remember if he said it first or if I said it first. I was like, I used to have a Silver Sky. And he's like, I used to have a Silver Sky. And then I was like, oh yeah, well, I play through a 2-Rock Studio Pro 35 watt, which is like a sort of a boutique-y hand-wired amp. They're like really hard to get. And he was like, I have a 2-Rock Studio Pro 35. And I was like, why do we let
a couple nerds nerding out, everybody?
Oh my God. It really did turn into nerd hour. It was beautiful because I was like, wow, like I already have sort of like this weird, like difficult time, like trusting people and like opening up what I truly like. And I was like, for the first time, I felt like I was looking in a mirror and I was like, I can really get along with this guy. Funny enough, sort of after that night, I actually spent the summer sort of just like moping privately about the weird stuff that was going on in my band. And I spent the whole summer like playing golf. Like I just needed something quiet to pay attention to. And then I think I remember going back in September, and I might have to go back and see if there was any other songs I was writing over the summer. I don't know if I wrote another song that summer, but something happened within like the August to September area. Maybe I was just watching all the fun that was happening and going like, I think I really want to start playing like even just 23 and Cigarettes again. I just want to keep playing these songs because they're really fun to play. And I remember they had a lot of positive feedback and all this stuff. So around that time, I went back to the Pocket. And also around the same time, I discovered that it doesn't happen anymore, but the DC Songwriters Showcase that was happening in Adams Morgan at Tight 5 Pub. Rest in peace. It's not there anymore, but so many fun times were had there. They also were one of those things that was happening at DC where, like, as long as you showed up, they had an open mic at the end of the whole showcase that if you wanted to show them that you wanted to have your own slot, you could go play the open mic, see if they like you, that whole thing. I remember showing up. Ben was there. I really went to go meet him there because I think that must have been the thing. It was, I kept watching Ben play music and I was like, I really want to keep playing music and I really want to be Ben's friend. So I just kept showing up and I got his number and I would just hit him up and see where he was going. And it was always these shows cases. So I remember I went to the Tight 5 Pub one night with the intention of, I want to play the open mic and I want to show them that I'm cool enough that I can also have my own set. And when I went, the gin and tonic started pouring again.
They do.
A lot of this is also really important because this feeds into sort of like my relationship with alcohol, Ben's relationship with alcohol. We can get into that later. But at the time, 2 or 3 gin and tonics deep, and it's time for me to go up and play. And I'm holding it together pretty good. But this sort of overarching theme in my head was, this is sort of a side tangent, but an overarching theme in my head was like, I could probably be a lot better if I didn't drink this much. But we had such a fun night, and Ben and I would just stand outside of the Tight 5 Pub until like 1 a.m, just talking about stuff. Or really, we would go into the parking garage that was down the street and just talk outside the car. But once they also gave me positive feedback, and they were like, we really like your songs, you should definitely come play. And they were doing showcases Wednesday and Sunday at the time. And then the open mics at the Pocket were on Tuesday. So before I knew it, I was kind of doing like Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday every week playing. And the more I was playing and the more I was making friends, the more I realized, oh, this is exactly the community that I've been searching for this whole time. And then my wish to sort of pursue music more seriously kind of happened organically just because I finally had friends. And that's, yeah.
The story of Patrick Budd, y'all are getting, I'm getting lost in it. Like, it's like I'm listening to a fireside chat, this is fantastic. But I'm glad you mentioned the community part because, when I've listened to you and I listened to the music and, from Poolsville to Pocket to Nashville, creating this new album and creating like, I guess all of these songs that you've imagined for a while that you're saying, like, it sounds like it's been revamped concepts or at least concepts from home, things that you're bringing with you to new towns. Pardon. So I do want to hear a little bit about that album recording process. Obviously, you have the show coming up for, which we can definitely talk about as well. But how has that been going to Nashville, a new space, but bringing your stories and trying to put them all together?
Oh yeah, this is actually, I'm going to give you quite the fun loaded answer for this because the plan was not initially Nashville. What had happened was, so 2023 goes by into 2024. Between 2023 and 2024, I had written everything I wanted to put on the album. In like June of 2024, that's when Ben Ryan moves to Nashville. And he wanted me to go with him. I wasn't sort of ready at the time. And he goes out there. And so I spent kind of the whole summer by myself, I guess, or at least that's how it felt because my sort of like duo partner was now 800 miles away. So what really happened is probably either before or after he left, around the same time, I had gone to Mystery Ton Studios to hash out some dates that I could record, and they ended up being these like 2 5-day stretches in October of 2024. By that time, I had everything I wanted to record, and because Ben, actually, I skipped over this part. Ben was in my first sort of Patrick Budd solo iteration band for a while too. And Ben actually helped come up with a lot of parts for these songs. So when I went to go record, sort of around in Maryland, it's I think Mystery Ton is it's in technically Monrovia, Maryland, but it's sort of Mount Airy-ish. I was like, Ben, you need to come down here and record your parts because you came up with them, and like I would always like learn Ben's parts just for my own self, but you'll realize quickly when you listen to two guitar players play how much you could give Ben the same exact gear like I was using and he'll still sound like Ben. You could give me all of Ben's gear and I'll still sound like me. So it was important that the parts that were being played were Ben's hands doing the part, because otherwise it'll just sound like me playing Ben's parts. Yeah. So I invited him to come down. We had an outrageously fun time. Sierra Klein, shout out. She came down and actually she recorded some parts as well. But essentially what ended up happening was over those 2 5-day stretches was, I wasn't exactly, by this time, this was actually my third time in a recording studio doing a project. And I still wasn't exactly able to figure out how to use the vocabulary I needed to say what it was that I wanted to hear. And in this instance, I was sort of largely responsible for coming up with all of the parts necessary for the song. And if I couldn't by myself, then there was nothing I was going to be able to do. This is important. So afterwards, this is October, flash forward to February of 2025, and Ben hits me up and he says, hey, you should come to Nashville. I'm going to record my album here. I think it would be really good for you to see a different recording experience than the one I had been sort of accustomed to my whole life, which was at Mystery 10 Studios. So I was like, okay, that sounds like a really good idea. So I flew down there for 5 days, I believe it was. Got there a day early so we could hang out and do all that stuff. And then the next day, he'd gotten an Airbnb right next to the studio we were going to be in. And the next day we went to this great big studio called Pentaveret Studios. Beautiful place. I mean, just gorgeous. The guy who runs it, first of all, is blind. Second of all, keeps that place neat as a pin. It's incredible. It is one of the best studios I've ever seen in my life. And so Ben had, with the help of producer Landon Stanley, who is also a very important character in this whole thing. Shout out Landon Stanley. With the help of Landon Stanley, Ben had assembled this band to record with. A fantastic drummer, keyboard player / like synth player, organ player, anything with keys this guy can hammer. Another guitar player, bassist, and of course Ben. And what they were doing was different from what I was doing because I was essentially just multi-track recording. So for those who don't know what that means, basically I would go into the studio and I would record to a click track, just my dry guitar and vocals. And then after that, you add the drums. And then after that, you add the bass. And then after that, you add the guitar. It's just multi-layering. It's like a tiered cake, if you will, of different instruments and other elements. But what Ben was doing was he was recording basically everything live. Not like everything, every single thing that you'll hear on his upcoming songs. Don't want to spill too much beans, but the Ben's guitar, the electric guitar, the drums, the bass, the keys were all being recorded live. And Ben was amazing. All of these people were so good at what they did. And I think the very first thought that I had was, I cannot believe my songs are not going to sound like this. Because Landon knows people. He knows musicians. And he knows who to cobble together to sort of fit these arrangements the best. And watching this happen was just like, it was like someone was living my dream. It was quite the insane experience. I actually remember the first day stepping into the studio. Landon, by the way, one of the nicest dudes ever. But because I'd never met him and because he's so good at what he does, you sort of can feel hate to use the word aura, but you can feel aura radiating off of someone who is just that good at what they do. And I remember the whole band went into the studio. I, of course, I'm not in the band, so I'm just sitting in the studio. And it's just me and Landon and his assistant at the time, Jacob. And I wasn't saying a word. I wasn't even sitting on the couch in front of the screen. I was like, let me get as far back into the corner as I can so that I'm not like in the way or anything like that. And then Jacob, the assistant, goes, Patrick, why don't you sit on the couch? Like, you can hear everything a lot better. I'm like, oh, okay, these guys are nice. So I'm like, this is going to be a real fun time. And then Ben spent, it was 3 or 4 days. I'll have him correct me on that. But it was 3 or 4 days at Pentaveret Studios tracking what I believe are 7 songs. And every song just sounded better than the next. So, and then after that, I got to see a day of sort of auxiliary recording because Landon also has a home studio that we can, if you want to overdub guitars, other keys, anything else, like, because you don't need a great big studio to record a guitar solo. You know what I mean? So, so after those 5 days, I flew home basically a broken man. I was actually devastated. I was so depressed. This was the best thing I could imagine happening to my songs. And in my mind, I was like, they're just not going to happen. So I think I went home and I just kept thinking about it all the time. And I would call Ben all the time just so I could ask him like what he was doing so that I could sort of live vicariously through him. And then finally, one day he called me out of the blue. It was probably like 10 o'clock at night. And I answer. And basically he cut right to the chase because another thing that happened while I was there was we were all sipping bourbon at the time. I'm a big bourbon guy for those who don't know. And so is Landon. And Landon has a great collection of bourbon. And Ben, who was drinking at the time, we were all sipping bourbon together, like after a long day in Landon's studio. And Landon stepped outside to go do something. And Ben turned to me and was like, Patrick, why don't you play Landon like some of the stuff you've been working on? And I was sort of so unhappy with how my stuff sounded that I was like, no, I'm not going to play him what I'm working on because I'm embarrassed, sort of personally. So flashback forward to Ben calling me at night. Ben calls me and he says, Patrick, I just wanted to tell you that I played Landon some of your stuff. And Landon, in so many words, was like, I can serve Patrick very, very well with this type of music. And Ben just wanted, and he wasn't exactly pressuring me to do anything. He just kept telling me, Patrick, I just want you to be happy with how your music sounds. And I was sort of like, we don't have to talk anymore. After that, he gave me Landon's number. And I went out into my backyard on a beautiful spring day and just sat in my bench swing and probably talked to Landon for about 4 hours, just catching him up on all that was Patrick. And from there, we essentially, actually, the important thing was too, is that Landon is such a great producer in his own right that he can pick who he works with. Just because Ben said he has a friend and that I had met Landon was there, just because he said like, oh, Patrick is interested, doesn't mean he has to record me. So I think he was kind of testing the waters because I also remember him asking me specifically over the phone, like what it was that my intentions were with my music. And I sort of was like, I feel like I have a message. I want it recorded the best way it possibly could be. I feel like you're the best one to do it. And I want to affect others. And he was kind of like, that's all I needed to hear. I'm ready to work. So we hashed out some dates. By this point, it was like March of 2025. And the plan was to go out there into late summer to go record the album. So from March up until the end of July, I kind of just waited around. I think I wrote probably the last 2 songs on this album early summer. And once I had those, then I actually was just waiting around. And then we went down there. I drove from basically Poolsville down to DC, and I actually stayed with Ben at his apartment for 2 weeks. I was there for 2 weeks. I brought all my guitars. I brought all my amps. I was like, I'm bringing everything. I brought pretty much. And Ben doesn't have a great big place, but I sort of economized, and I brought an air mattress. I brought everything I needed. Even though he has like a futon on his couch, I brought my air mattress because just in case. And it actually ended up working out because Christian Angira, who I've been playing music with since the very first band I was ever in, he's still the drummer in my band. And he's so integral to Patrick Budd music that I was like, Christian, however we have to get you down here to record the drums, there's no one else that I want recording the drums than you. So he was like, yeah, there's no one else I want recording my drums either. So he came down and he stayed with us. And then that actually ended up working out because I let him sleep on the couch and then I would sleep on the air mattress. But the minute he left, I was like, that couch does look really comfy. So I finally got rid of the air mattress. But so I get down there. I think the first 2 days we just kind of recorded stuff in Landon's studio because Christian had another entanglement he had to deal with before he could come down there. So he came down like the second or third day. So the first 2 days I was there, we kind of recorded some really mellow things. Like I have this one song on the album called My Dog and I, which is basically just me standing in front of a microphone singing this little 1.5-minute long song I wrote about my dog. Very, very touching song. And then I think just like some other guitar work for another song, but we really couldn't do that much until we had Christian there because we were going to do the same thing Ben did. We were going to go into Pentaveret Studios and we were just going to record the bones. However, in my case, we decided not to exactly do the whole kit and caboodle. We pretty much just stuck me with a guitar and Christian on the drums and a brilliant bassist. He's one of the before we went on air, I was telling Tyler that on Cigarettes, the recorded version, we had a world-class trio of brothers playing a lot of the bluegrassy stuff. But one of the brothers, his name is Joe Dorfel. We had him on bass for every single one of the songs. So me, Christian, and Joe go into Pentaveret Studios, and instead of like the 3 or 4 days that I was accustomed to watching Ben do, it to sort of economize, it was like, okay, let's just do 1 day and get all of these bones. So for 1 day, we spent probably 12 hours in this place. And it was one of the most fun experiences of my life. It was one of the most grueling experiences of my life. I really had to sort of channel some of my like grittier, tougher energy. Whereas like if I wasn't in this situation, if something else was happening where it required this much energy of me, I might have given up. And there were some points during this 12-hour day at Pentaveret Studios where I was sort of thinking to myself, how hard would it be to get a day here? Or I wonder if we could take another break, or like, I wonder if we could come back. And every time I thought that, I would just think, no, we are here. That you gave your whole life to do this. This is the exact thing I used to pray for times like these type of vibe. So onward we marched. The other thing that happened was we got Papa John's for lunch, and then all that carb load made a real horrible lull at around 3:00. I don't think anyone wanted to work anymore. But once that settled out, then we were sort of back and running. And yeah, so we were there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and boom, all the bones are done. So after that, basically the next 10 days was, all right, we need guitars, we need sort of piano, we need everything else now to turn these things from just a trio to songs. So I can't really remember what we started with first. I think we might have just gone right into electric guitars. So we had Ben for that, of course, because Ben has quite a few parts on these songs. He plays on Cigarettes. He plays on 23. He's got a really great guitar solo on 23. The funny thing was too is at Mystery Ton Studios, he recorded a certain guitar solo that I loved so much. And by the time we did it for Landon's studio, Ben had sort of turned into this other more bluesier guitar player. Whereas like the original solo he wrote, he was sort of more of a country guitar player. But I was like, Ben, I love this solo so much. I need you to figure out how you played it so you can play it again.
Back to the country.
Back to the country. Come on now. Which is funny, not to share Ben's business, but he always thought of himself in DC as like the country guy. And now that like he's sort of in a more country music environment, he's like, I don't want to be the country guy anymore, which I think is so sick. He's a born contrarian. Yes. And so we did guitars. That took a few days. There's not a whole lot of electric guitar going on with this stuff, which is funny because I basically started out just on electric guitar solos, blues, all this stuff. This is all sort of more Americana folky arrangements. So there is a lot of There are electric guitars, but there's not nearly as many as I anticipated. Lot of acoustic guitar doublings, lot of interestingly fun acoustic guitars that we played. I don't know if anyone's familiar with a stringing style of your guitar called, I think it's just called high strung, which basically means, or I think they call it Nashville tuning. And basically what it is, it's standard tuning guitar, but it's if you took a 12 string guitar, which basically has an octave for each string. So it's like the E string has like a low E, but also a higher E. And then you take all of the high octave strings and you string them up and you get this beautiful sort of tinny, thin, really resonant sound. So,
my type of high strung is not that beautiful. High strung to me is, living my daily life here in DC, interacting with people around here. So I prefer this version.
Yes, this is for us high strung people, because I am also, as you can see, I can just go and go. But so a lot of really fun different guitars we got to use. After that, there is a gentleman by the name of Matt Twaddle, who is one of the greatest musicians I have seen play in person. He's the keyboard player for basically everything. And the funny thing is I have a song out right now called Call Me When You're Home. And I remember the day we recorded Call Me When You're Home in Pentaveret Studios. That was the one that was killing everybody. It's so fast. It's so syncopated. You kind of need to be really definitive and when you're bum bum ba da ba dum bum ba da ba bum bum. Another one of them train songs. And you have to be so calculated with what you do. And after a 3 p.m. Papa John's pizza excursion, you start feeling a little mushy. So I remember thinking like, this is the one that's going to like suck the most. So when we got Matt Twaddle in the studio, he's this good of a musician. So we get him in the studio and we decide, you know what? Because he was like, what song do you want me to do first? And I was like, maybe we'll have you do Call Me When You're Home first. So that way we can just get that out of the way. He got on the damn keys and played this thing. And we could have kept the first take. Right. Did another one for safety. Did a third one just to be like, play it like you already have the take. And that might have been the one we ended up using just because he was sort of like, all right, we had the take, now it can be a little more colorful. Exactly. So watching him play was one of the most incredible things. So we got him in. I had a lot of really fun nights at Landon's too, because sort of after the sun went down, the sort of like demon hours came out too, where we were just like, okay, what else can we think of? Like, I don't know if anyone knows what a Moog is, but it's like this crazy little synthesizer that Landon has, and we were just mooging these crazy things. I mean, once you hear the songs when they're out there, you'll find these sort of little surprises. We try to make all of the fun moments apparent. We don't like bury them as much. But then basically with all the instruments done, then we went to singing, and I think I must have spent 4 or 5 days in this vocal booth. It was so intense, and it was so much harder than I thought it was going to be, just because of how daunting the sort of task was. Keep in mind, we're trying to finish an entire album in 2 weeks. So I get into this vocal booth and we're kind of chopping away, and we're doing everything we can to get these takes. And after the first one, I kind of understood what it was that I needed to get a hold of within myself so that I could provide decent vocals. And we started marching away from there, and I spent sort of 8 hours every day for 5 days in this vocal booth. Finally got everything done. And then I remember sort of, this is probably the last story I'll tell about this, because this was a really funny sort of like, we celebrated too early almost. At the time, I remember thinking, okay, so we're going to record. I know when I need to leave. So does Ben, but Ben had managed to cobble together this other singer-songwriter showcase that a friend of his runs, and we were going to play it together. He had gotten them to get us like our own slot together, just like we did in the old days. So, being the guys that we were, and this was originally supposed to be my last night there. I ended up cobbling together an extra night just because it was like, okay, if we have one more day, then we can do all the background vocals too, and then we'll be done. Also, speaking of background vocalists, real quick, there is a girl named McKenna Stam who sings background vocals on many of these songs. She is a sharp shooter of a vocalist. It's incredible. I got a mix recently for a song on this album that will be coming out called Gone Again. It's just incredible. So be on the lookout for that. But I needed to do my own background vocals. So we cobbled an extra day for that. But the night before that, Ben and I did this songwriter showcase. And I don't even think I ate lunch. Very important. No Papa John's, no carbs, no nothing for any alcoholic beverage to settle in. And we show up to this bar. It's this cruddy little bar. It's called the Rusty Nail. I love it so much. And I walk up to the bar and she says, "What do you have to drink?" And I was like, "Maker's Neat." Just.
Double.
Oh, well, she asked me if I wanted a double. And I said, "No, thank you. I need to be responsible because I have to drink tomorrow." No, I have to I have to sing tomorrow. I have to be responsible because
I get it though. You can't drink too much.
You can't drink tomorrow. Exactly. So I'm drinking Maker's Neat. First one goes down. Ben has one too, I think. And then we go and get a second. And then we're about to do, this is bad. These angels are losing their wings. These ones, we're called up to go play next. And instead of like what they normally do in Nashville too, is like their songwriter rounds, they take pretty seriously. So they'll set like 6 or probably no more than 6 or 7 people. Don't clip me for that. In a row, and then everyone kind of goes in a line, plays a song. They got us so that Ben and I could just be on our own, and he could play on my songs and I could play on his songs. But before we went on stage, I was like, should we go get one more round? Oh no, but oh yes. So we walk up to the bar and we were kind of like, what should we do? Should we just get the same thing? I noticed that they had a refrigerator behind the bar, and in the refrigerator was this drink. And I looked at Ben and was like, "That's a wild looking drink. That's a wild looking choice. I'll do it if you do it." And he's like, "I'll do it if you do it." It was Jack Daniel's Blackberry. Woo! Oh my God. Never would have even thought about it if I hadn't had the first 2 Maker's Neats. But it was just jarring enough that I was like, this feels like it's calling my name. So we take our Jack Daniel's Blackberry up onto the stage. And by the way, it tastes like cough syrup. It is so bad. It just tastes like NyQuil. So we're playing, and I think on camera, it ended up being okay, but boy, was it hammy. I mean, I felt like I was fighting Mike Tyson just to like stay in key, like singing. Yeah. It was pretty crummy. It was pretty tough. It was fun, but it was tough. And after that, I had like another sort of canned beverage and all these things. And I didn't eat dinner either. I woke up the next morning, just probably one of the worst hangovers I ever had, knowing I have to be to the studio in like 2 hours. It's like 7:30. I have to be there by like 9:30. And I'm like, I also think I might throw up. And if I throw up, I'm cooked. There's no remedying the acid, all like the crap that you throw up that's going to be in your throat for like the rest of the day. So I spent like the next 2 hours, I texted Landon. I said, I'm going to be a little late, but I am coming. And I spent the entire morning pacing back and forth. Ben had already gone to work. Pacing back and forth, getting in the shower, getting out of the shower, sipping water, pacing back and forth, getting in the shower, so anxious, but also just trying to like, I guess, throw off my body so that it wouldn't think about the fact that I might throw up. Ended up pulling it together. Ended up making it to the studio, sang all the background vocals like a pro, but it did wake me up to maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Maybe I almost blew it. Maybe I need to not go out and drink so much, especially before important. Yeah. So that was a very interesting thing because, so anyway, so I sang the background vocals, and then the next day I went home. And not that this is super tied to the album. That was essentially all of that making of the album. But just a little sort of note on drinking, because that was the first day I noticed I probably shouldn't be drinking this much when I go play or do anything for that matter, because I kind of almost ruined my performance that night too. And I remember they always say, you know, not that I consider myself an addict, but when you realize that something is a problem, it's not really the first instance that it happens to you. I woke up and I had that morning probably 5 more times when I got home, and then realized, oh, I'm affecting myself. I'm sort of giving myself a poorer quality of life. I'm showing up to work hungover. I'm useless. Like, I might as well not go, you know? But to myself, I'm thinking I have to prove something by still being able to show up. Doesn't matter if you're useless. So that was a really fun instant with that. Ben ended up actually going to do a month-long mission in Louisiana, and he didn't drink, and now still doesn't drink. And actually watching Ben do that was probably when I was like, you know what, maybe I ought to do that too. I don't necessarily not drink, but now I don't drink before I play anymore. I'll usually have a drink maybe afterwards, but definitely not before I play. And anyway, so that was speaking of, were we going to get to the playing?
Well, I wanted the people, first of all, thanks for sharing all that, man. That's a lot of like internal insight, and it takes a lot of honesty to even be able to talk about that. So I appreciate you saying that. I'm still gonna have a couple at your show, but if you'll have one after your set, I'll meet you at the bar.
Afterwards is wide open.
Yeah. So I would like you to shout that show out, and then we do want to get into a performance here before we're not running out of time. We still got some time. Yeah. No, we're doing good. So please let the people know the show, where they can find you, and then some pertinent information around that. We'll go to a quick song break, and then we'll set you up.
Do that. Okay. So basically, if you like anything that I've said so far, I sort of write about that. My name is Patrick Budd. You can find me on Patrick Budd Music. So this entire album means so much to me, because there's a part of it that I actually sort of decided against what I was initially telling people it was about, because it is about Poolesville, Maryland, essentially the whole thing. And you're good. And the thing about it is, I was sort of considering this album a love letter to Poolesville in a way, but I've sort of decided that it's not necessarily that I love what it is. I love what Poolesville was more so. And this is sort of me, I guess, unpacking a lot of what I thought about when I was a kid, growing up in a small town like this with brothers that I could, play in the backyard with, or make friends at school to go skateboarding with. And all of these things that sort of encompassed like growing up and living in the small little town where you could just bike everywhere and scooter everywhere. The sun seemed to shine a little bit brighter. The trees seemed to be a little bit greener. And the entire record is laced with this nostalgia for what once was. So essentially, we're celebrating this finally with the very first album release show that I'll be having, which is going to be on the Wharf in DC, Washington, DC, in a little venue called Pearl Street Warehouse. I say little because it's right next to the Anthem, which dwarfs it, of course. But we're going to have the show at Pearl Street Warehouse. The aforementioned Ben Ryan is going to be coming down and playing a set as well. So I am so excited that that's going to happen. There's also another band called 2 Ton Twig, which is going to be playing another set too. Actually, 2 Ton Twig. So the guy who's in that band is a guy named Donnie. Shout out Donnie Blanco. And he used to be the bartender at the Pocket. So he's seen me play every single one of these songs for the first time. He is also in 2 Ton Twig is a proper bluegrass band. And I knew that, don't want to give too much away, but like, in the event that maybe I needed a bluegrass band for a certain song of mine that has a bluegrass jam section in the outro, it'd be nice to have them around.
I know a certain heavy stick that you can.
Me too. So that's right. So Ben Ryan, 2 Ton Twig coming to support me. And then, of course, me and the Bud and Company are going to play the whole album. Every single song on it's getting played. maybe a couple other surprises, maybe a couple oldies but goodies that I used to have around. So I hope you can make it to the show. The tickets are, of course, available via link in bio, Patrick Budd Music. And pretty much all there is to say about that.
Fantastic. You gave him the socials and all that too?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Well, everybody, we're going to get into some music now, but thank you for listening in to Patrick Budd. Those were some great tales about himself, his music, his creations, his life, and how they all tie into each other. You get to see it all culminate at Pearl Street Warehouse.
That's right.
What day again?
April 19th.
April 19th. Check them out. You are now tuned into the program with Tyler on Demand. Oh yeah, it's the program with Tyler on Demand. I will explain if you didn't understand. It's the program with Tyler on Demand.